Route 616, your home for all things Marvel main continuity. Welcome, guys. This is episode 27 of Route 616. I am RJ, and I'm here with Bill.
Hey.
And Dan, the guy who is able to actually be here for this episode.
He couldn't hide. We postponed filming so that he could show up for both Spider-Man stories, and not at all because someone slept for our recording session yesterday.
Yeah, so funny story.
I'm not the white guy you're looking for.
Funny story. We were gonna do the bonus episode this weekend,
last night.
We were gonna record this last night, and we would have missed out on having Dan in the episode. But and then
they missed me so much.
I just passed out, was fighting off sickness, and then we pushed the recording to today. And
I have a blanket to keep my shoulders warm because of the ache from carrying these two and these things. Okay.
We decided not to record. We decided that since we didn't have time to record today, we were just going to postpone the Alien franchise episode until January. So there's just not going to be a bonus episode this month.
Did we really make a final decision about that, or did you two just decide that? And,
Bill and I were fine with it.
Is you two film it sometime without me.
Yeah, we won't. We can't really do it.
No, I'm not going to do a movie podcast with Mr. I've never seen anything but 5 different Disney films. My
That's
entire
crazy.
life routine.
That's crazy.
Yes,
right?
so that's
you're
why
not
we're
leaving me
not doing one this
alone
month.
with him. Thank you. Because my God.
I as much as I take offense at your opinions of Spider-Man,
This is slander.
I couldn't leave you alone with someone who thinks that the pinnacle of cinema is Rob Zombie's Halloween.
This is slander.
No, it's not slander. You can't handle the truth.
I feel like Peter Parker right now.
Oh, you look like him too. Dorky haircut,
Damn it,
glasses.
bring me some pictures of Spider-Man.
And stop whining. Oh my God, stop whining.
Well, I think
I'm alive. I have no friends. Nobody loves me.
I think on that
Spider-Man. Speaking of cringe, guess what I watched last night?
What's that?
Preamble into comic books. This is going to be okay. Can we take a moment to all grimace when I say the name Star Wars Holiday Special?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Okay.
I haven't seen that in years.
Okay. Good.
Me neither.
Guess what? You get to relive it with a brand new face on it. It's called
Guardians of the Galaxy
Galaxy Christmas Special. Oh my God! What were they thinking? Were they trying to outdo what they did with the Star Wars one?
I've heard good things about it.
It's horrifying.
People said it's the most that the teams felt like the team since Volume 2.
Since it felt like a team?
So since the last movie they did, basically.
Yeah,
Pretty much,
since the last movie around the team they said it hasn't been as good since the Russo brothers and Taika Waititi had it.
Oh my God.
If I was
it's more cringeworthy than Ryan's dating history.
If I was up to date, I would be watching it already. Oh, you're a bastard there.
I am. Gotta make up for last week.
Maybe we shouldn't have postponed. Well, that's my bad, I guess. But anyway.
Well, at least I didn't. I didn't get
as long as he's
the
mocking
Spider-Man
you,
stories.
it's just your fault, and I'm fine with it.
There you go.
That's true. So, today...
Now, once someone mentions Manchester United, we're going to have issues.
Oh, yeah, just wave that red flag, right? Just go, oh, Dan, look, here's a red flag. Yeah, okay. I'll remember that.
Dan's like a bull.
Just
go
because
ahead.
our sale is actually wanted and yours isn't.
You wish. You wish.
So,
Right.
anyways...
We were happy. You're not.
Onto the comics we're covering.
Oh, is this about comics?
Sometimes.
Okay.
We're going to start off this episode with Tales to Astonish, issue number 53, which has a main A story and a 5-page B story.
Story.
As apparently this is an 18-page story, which is horrifying. And then we have... We have Amazing Spider-Man issue number 11, the first of a two-part story we will be going through today. And they're kind enough to break up Spider-Man for Dan with an issue, the first issue of Daredevil number 1. And then we have the second part of that two-parter with Amazing Spider-Man number 12. And to end us off today, we get the next issue of everybody's favorite wordy comic. It's X-Men with issue number 5.
Yay!
So hallelujah. So, the A story of Tales to Astonish number 53. The story is called Trapped by the Porcupine. Hell yeah, Porcupine's back, baby. Let's go.
Stan Lee, favorite bad guy.
Stan Lee writes this, of course, because he writes every fucking thing. And then we have art by Dick Ayers. Jack Kirby and Sol Brodsky do the cover. Sam Rosen does the letters. This is a December 1963 release. Merry Christmas to Dan, an 18-page story.
Okay, are we ready for this? We ready for this?
Sure we are. Porcupine.
As a couple of lame superheroes meet the villain of the century. Okay.
Hey, Wasp is nice.
Yeah. Okay, no.
Don't worry, Dan. The Porcupine is also lame in this.
Wasp is held down.
Lies. Pure fucking lies. Porcupine is awesome. Okay. Trapped by the Porcupine. Okay, here we go. And this is straight again from the Marvel database. I'm just going to read out their synopsis for this. It's not that terrible. While putting on a show outside for children at a local orphanage, Giant Man and the Wasp are unaware that they are being secretly watched by their foe, the Porcupine. Bum, bum, bum. Porcupine uses his armor. He has armor?
That's what they're terming the spiny suit of dark guns.
Okay. Also, when they say he's watching them, he's literally around a corner watching. He's around a corner on the street watching them, and it's beautiful.
Yes, this comic is not good.
Porcupine uses his armor to cause Giant Man and Wasp stunt, having Wasp cross between two buildings on Giant Man's body, to fail. And the two heroes have to prevent falling to their deaths, but Giant Man hurts his ankle in the fall. His initial attempt at revenge a failure, Porcupine makes his escape unnoticed. God, I've forgotten how to talk. On his way back to his
lab... If only that happened more often.
Shush. I love Halloween, the Rob Zombie film. It's the best movie ever made. I can't believe they didn't get an Oscar.
I didn't even say it was the best Halloween movie.
It's so scary.
This is such slander.
I almost peed my knickers. Ooh. Okay, have I been sufficient enough to shut him up for a minute? Okay, Porcupine makes it on his way back to his lab. He recounts his first encounter with Giant Man and Wasp in Tales to Astonish, Volume 1, number 48. Back in his lab, in a civilian guise, Porcupine develops a powerful sleeping gas that would affect Giant Man's oversized lungs. The Porcupine then decides to use the Giant Man and Wasp fan club as a method to get revenge on the two heroes. Showing up at a local chapter's clubhouse, he convinces the members to dress up as Giant Man villains and visit the injured hero to cheer him up. The fans hardly suspect that they're being duped by the real Porcupine and agree to organize the event. Wow, comic book fans
beautiful.
Are dumb.
It's beautiful.
You know what the worst thing is?
Dumb.
That synopsis
you two would do that.
That synopsis makes it sound better than it actually is in the comic. Because they already had the idea to dress as this. They were just dressing as Giant Man's villains. And all Porcupine suggested was, hey, why don't we go see Giant Man? That'll cheer him up.
Wow, your costume looks so real.
Yeah, but what's horrible about this is you two would fall for this. You both would. I know you would. And you would dress up as villains just to go see Giant Man. I know you would do it. Oh, Paul Rudd's so dreamy. I have to go see him. Anyway.
Well, if it's Paul Rudd, sure. That's Scott Lang. That's a completely different guy.
Thank you for making my point for me.
Yeah, I would accept that Scott Lang is a suitable visit. However,
worthy of a visit from you two? No, he's not. Don't ever do this to the poor man.
We have some standards.
Okay, maybe we should go visit Hank Pym. He would deserve that.
Nobody. Idi Amin could come back to life tomorrow, and he wouldn't deserve a visit from you two. Okay?
I don't even know who that is. So.
Oh my God.
Ryan with the self-burial.
There's a movie
I
called
don't even need to make the comment I was going to make now because that was better. I
That
was
was
going
better,
to point
yeah.
out, Dan, that you voluntarily spend time with us. So what's that say about you?
I'm a pathetic loser.
At least you said it.
Just so you know. Okay, where were we? Oh, yeah. Upon
Dad
arriving at
schemes
Giant...
to cheer up Giant Man.
Oh, that's right. Upon arriving at Giant Man's headquarters to visit the injured hero, Porcupine asks the Wasp, who thinks he's just a fan in a very convincing costume because she's an idiot, to retrieve
Well, she's a woman. It's the 60s.
present. Wow. Thanks for pointing it out.
Stan Lee said it.
Okay,
I
YouTube
am
gets
also
ready to
going
pull
to,
this video.
At this point, I'm also going to call your attention to the fact that they visit Giant Man at his headquarters because it will be important later in the issue. Mostly for mockery.
Okay. Anyway, so somehow Porcupine talks the Wasp into going to his car to get a present for Giant Man that he'd forgotten. The Wasp does so, and once
Clearly,
she's out
she
of the
hasn't
room...
seen Silence of the Lambs.
That's right. Yeah.
Ryan will get
And
that joke some year when he watches the movie.
I was about to say, neither have I.
It puts the PIM particles on its skin or it gets the hose again. Oh, now I'm really creeped out. Okay.
I wouldn't put that past Hank, honestly.
No. The Wasp complies, and once she's out of the room, the Porcupine strikes, unleashing his quill of gas upon everyone. Giant Man, however, shoots up to full sizes and uses one of his gym rings to spin really fast and disperse the gas. Hold on, I gotta reread that because I'm pretty sure that wasn't what it said.
No, that's what it said. I'm looking at the page right now.
Oh, dear God in heaven.
He's taken influence from the human top.
He is. Giant Man battles the Porcupine until the villain gets loose and informs the hero that he has captured the Wasp and escapes. He's gone. Just like that. No more Porcupine.
She'll later wish she stayed gone.
One little quill quivering in the dirt. Anyway, realizing that the Wasp is heading into a trap, well, I would think it's a little too late there, Giant Man, you dork.
I think who wrote the synopsis misunderstood what happens because he realized she's already been trapped and then theorized how he would have done the trapping. And just like, that's how they tell you how Porcupine actually trapped her, is just Giant Man theorizing about it.
Okay. Giant Man races to her rescue, but cannot prevent her capture by the Porcupine, and cannot chase after his escaped vehicle because of his injured leg, which he obviously injured when he was pretending he was a ceiling fan. With the Wasp as a prisoner...
No, he injured it falling off the building because of Porcupine.
Yeah, I remember here. It was
Nobody
ankle near
cares.
the
It's
start of the
Giant
synopsis.
Man.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but Giant Man resolves to find a way to save his partner, in spite of his injuries. He's my hero. Anyway, meanwhile, the Porcupine allows the Wasp to escape because otherwise the comic would continue on forever in some complicated plot that people might enjoy. We don't want that now, do we?
Personally,
this is the
18
point
pages
I
is enough for Giant Man.
Was calling attention to for earlier. He allows her to escape so he can follow her and figure out where Giant Man's headquarters are. You know, the headquarters he was in on the last page.
That's clever. Wow. Oh, well, according to this, he has a remote control quill following her so he can find the location of Giant Man's home. Find out the hero's true identity. When the Wasp arrives home, so she lives with Giant Man now? It's a little risque, don't you think?
That's why I'm saying that, like, in the comic, it's the headquarters he wants to find. It's clearly stated as such. I think they were trying to make the bad writing make sense.
Yeah, good luck with that. Okay, but anyway, Giant Man, being Sherlock fucking Holmes, deduces the Porcupine's plan and destroys the quill, but not before the Porcupine finds his way to Giant Man's New Jersey home and traps the wasp via sticky paper from his quills. Wow, I just knew that was going to come up at some point in one of these stories.
I have a note about that yet.
Yeah, the two battle inside Giant Man's home until the Porcupine grabs a number of Giant Man's capsules from his belt. Thinking they are growing capsules, the Porcupine takes them all. However, the Porcupine realizes he made a grave error when he begins to shrink. Giant Man cannot stop the process and soon loses the Porcupine once the villain has shrunk to microscopic size. After watching the Porcupine shrink down to a single microbe, he frees Jan from the paper, and two talk about the battle as the story ends.
Thank God they found a way to bring Porcupine back.
What a wild. And Bill gets that reference as well, doesn't he?
Yes.
You won't get it, Ryan. Don't worry about it. I mean, why are you on this podcast, by the way?
One of these days I'll get a reference. I mean, I knew the Hose Again line. So I just haven't seen the
Only
movie.
because it's part of pop culture.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, this comic was terrible. It got 2 stars on Dick Ayer's art alone.
I gave it 4 stars completely for Porcupine.
Best comic of the month. Absolutely stunning. I don't have the words to tell you how incredible this comic was.
I hate you so much right now.
Oh yeah, we
Dan.
actually. Hey,
The person
we
who actually rates the comics.
we actually have. It is actually the end of the month, so we actually do have to do best and worst comics of the month this episode, which I think was kind of forgotten about a little bit.
Yeah, I think it was because
Bill did the list up, I think.
Oh,
yeah,
did you?
I sent it to you guys.
It was sent yesterday. I just haven't looked at it, and Bill hates me for actually giving this a 4 star.
The one I liked the most was one of the ones I did the last show. I can't remember which one it was now.
That's all right. We'll run through it later. How the hell did you give this 4 stars, Ryan?
Mostly for
This
Porcupine.
story is absolutely terrible.
Porcupine's my boy. It's pretty much never an Impossible Man situation where the story doesn't deserve it, and I still gave it to it. If we're being honest.
Why would we be honest, okay?
I don't know.
Seriously, what's the point? Okay, I don't see the list. How friggin' much chat?
To be honest, it surprised me when I saw it. I thought I gave it only a 3 for Porcupine. I didn't think I gave it a 4.
When Dan was summarizing it, I was severely regretting not giving it a 1.
Incredible. I mean, I just had fun.
Honestly,
I had fun reading it, honestly.
If the Porcupine wasn't in it, I'd have given it a 1 too. But I'm going to give it a 2 because Porcupine's my man.
Dan
I
gets
love
it.
Porcupine, but this was not a good outing.
I love him. I know, but he's such an epic little bad guy. He's kind of like the sad sack of the Marvel villains set, and he's just epic.
Yeah.
Oh, Porcupine's fantastic. This just was not a good outing for him.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So is Peter Quill his son?
Let's move on to the B
is like
story.
the Porcupine really like some kind of cosmic space god?
I was going to make a bad Peter Quill pun earlier when you said a lone quill was left quivering in the ground, and I'm glad at least someone on this podcast has the restraint to not actually do that.
Bill's talking about
He
himself.
means you, Ryan. There's no way he can mean me. Obviously.
No, it's Bill. Bill's talking about themselves. I make shitty jokes too sometimes. But anyways, let's move on to the B story.
Difference is mine are funny.
You can't say that with a straight face after making that Peter Quill pun.
Yes, I can. Mine are funny.
The B story for this one. 1 Weeks to Colossus is the story title. This is fucking 5 pages. Don Heck does the inks. Larry Lieber does the co-writing and art.
Lieber.
So this is going to be good.
Lieber.
Yeah, it's Lieber.
Blah, blah.
Because that's what Stan Lee has shortened to get Lee.
Whoa.
Burp.
That's crazy how names work. Let's move on to this shitty little story. This is pretty much a Hank Pym trying not to be misogynistic challenge, and he fails. So,
This is also the Dan pun of stories.
Uh-oh.
So we open up with Hank asking saying to Was that he thought she was going to go visit the Veterans Hospital to entertain the fellows with some fantasy tales. And she says how she is, but she wanted to put on her face. She's like, want me to give you a preview of the stories I'll tell? He's like, oh, I know better than to stop you, kid. Shoot. So we go into her story, which is, takes place on an alien world far out in space. Whoa, far out, dude. With an evil warlord named Mingo.
Wow, that's not too Flash Gordon, is it? Emperor Ming.
They just happen to be drawn like they're Asian too. Or colored.
Yeah,
I was going to say the Asian coloring is less offensive given that they're actual aliens.
But this is straight out of Flash Gordon. Emperor Ming.
Yeah, I mean, this is a reprinted 50s sci-fi story with a bad framing device, so it probably is a direct rip-off of Flash Gordon.
It is a direct rip-off of Flash Gordon. Like, right down to the way the Ming and his minions look.
So right away, Emperor Min has conquered an alien race, a primitive alien race. This is so he rules more land now. Blah blah. There's not really much to the story. Basically, he keeps his people in line by he has this big statue built, which is where the Colossus comes into this, because it's a statue of a Colossus, and he keeps people in line by telling them that if they act out against him, the Colossus will come to life. Which is just a tale that the Emperor Ming made up, but we actually see the statue.
You're doing it now. This one's Mingo. He's the budget Ming.
Oh, Mingo.
Yeah, Mingo.
Well, you said Min, so I got it.
Yeah, that's the Flash Gordon character
Flash
that
Gordon.
they're blatantly ripping off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mingo. But yeah, Emperor Mingo had made the whole Colossus spin up, but it comes to life after all, and the stone awakens. We see it go to Emperor Mingo's castle, and starts destroying it. And Mingo is shocked because it was just the tale he had made up, and the Emperor Mingo was just taught a lesson for his selfishness and greed.
Basically, Flash Gordon villain beaten by a Jewish golem.
Pretty much, although not actually the golem, because that won't come around for another 10 years.
Oh, so it's a discount golem as well.
Pretty much, yeah.
And Janet's like, well, that's...
And Sauron ends up wandering the land, muttering to himself.
Janet's like, well, that's my tail, Hank. And she's like, you'd like that? Oh, you've had your nose buried in your test tubes the whole time. You didn't hear a thing. And he's like, huh? What'd you say, Jan? And then she's like, I'm leaving, you brute. And Hank's like, gosh, I wonder what makes that growl so excitable. Oh, yeah.
And I just want to be clear to anyone listening. Ryan didn't skim over why the golem came to life. They just never said.
Oh, God.
It's really bad. It's a 1 star. It'd be 0 stars if I could do 0 star.
1.
Yeah.
1. This is embarrassingly derivative of Flash Gordon, a villain straight out of Gollum, and Sauron level, end to it. All right, so Mingo's off to Hobbiton to subjugate the hobbits. And, oh wow, it's just terrible.
Well, it's a
I'm
good
not
thing
even
that
sure what the morality point beyond Conquest bad was supposed to be. Like, usually they try for some sort of clever twist.
normally there's a
This
better
one
message.
just made no sense.
This one was just not even a good message dropped in a shitty little story.
It's just tedious.
Yeah.
Bleh.
So it's a good
The
thing
only
we
reason
had.
I didn't absolutely hate it was 5 pages and I got through it in like 2 minutes.
That helps. Yeah, no, this is a total bleh.
There's a reason the
it's-
5-pagers basically never make my worst list.
This is a good lead-in for our next comic, as we're going to move over to Amazing Spider-Man issue number 11. This issue is titled, the story's issue is titled Turning Point. With Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, of course. The only difference for any other credit goes to Sam Rosen for letters. This is a January 1964 release. Happy New Year with some Spider-Man. A 21-page story, and Bill is going to take the Spider-Man issues this week.
All right. So we open with Peter having a good old sulk in his bedroom because Betty has disappeared and he doesn't know
Where
where
else
she
would we
is.
start?
Yeah. I have no friends. Nobody loves me. I gotta go do a comic podcast.
Thanks for sharing your personal life, Dan.
No problem. Least I can do.
Anyway, so Peter's sulk is interrupted by the news bulletin that Dr. Octopus is being released from prison after serving his full term.
He's writhing to get out of there.
Yes. And so we get a recap that's actually kept to only one panel for once of how Peter battled him last time. And Peter heads off to try to prevent Doc Ock from getting released because he has respect for law and order. And so he heads to the prison and breaks into the warden's office and demands that the warden keep Doc Ock in prison. And the warden's just like, stop being an asshole. He served his time. He gets out. And
right.
Peter goes home
Biatch.
and sulks about how, everyone deserves a second chance. So I guess I'm going to have to accept that he's getting released and just keep an eye on him.
That's right, you whiny little bitch.
And he builds his spider tracer here because he's going to go and spy on this now law-abiding citizen.
I was shocked to see the Spider Chaser so early.
Yeah, I kind of was too. And he goes back to spy on Doc Ock getting released from prison. And Ock leaves and gets picked up by a car that's being driven by Betty. So Spider-Man freaks out and goes to try to figure out what's going on. And notices that when Ock got into the car, a piece of paper fell out. So he throws his spider tracer onto the car and then grabs the paper, which is a map of Philadelphia. So he figures that that must be where they're going. And so he decides he's going to go to Philadelphia and see what's going on. And we cut over to a jail in Philadelphia where Betty's brother is in jail.
Oh.
And he's being threatened by a gangster that, or he's not in jail. The gangster's in jail. Betty's brother is his lawyer, and the gangster is threatening him that he needs to get out to pay off, get him out to pay off his gambling debt, or else the gangster's going to arrange for Betty to be killed, and presumably her brother, to be killed as well. So he leaves feeling sad and goes home, where he finds Betty being menaced by Doc Ock. And
getting a little handsy, is he?
Just a bit. And Bennett had arranged for Betty to bring Doc Ock up there because he wants Doc Ock to break this gangster out of jail for him.
Ah, clever.
And so Doc Ock and Bennett leave, and Betty's left feeling sad. And we cut back to New York, where Peter's telling Aunt May that he wants to go to Philadelphia to see the historical sites. And for once, she's not convinced that he's going to die the instant he's out of the house. So she encourages him to have a good time.
Get
And he
away
heads
from
off
me,
to
you whiny little
Philadelphia.
shit. Go get a life. Find
go
some
get
friends.
yourself a cheesesteak, kid.
And he starts swinging around Philadelphia. And he sees Betty walking down the street. So off panel, he changes back into his Peter Parker identity. And
They send him back to live with his auntie and uncle in Bel Air.
This is the second
wait, his
or the third
uncle's
time.
dead.
So this time he gets kidnapped by the studio execs because the contract said Bel Air, not Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
If we're going with Fresh Prince references, we're going deep.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Ryan, Fresh Prince was a show that was on TV in the early 90s.
I fucking know what Fresh Prince is. I just haven't watched it. One day.
Right. Oh, look, something he's actually, well, he probably hasn't seen
I've
it, but
seen
he knows what
some. I've seen some scenes from it.
some scenes.
Yep.
Not even episodes.
Nope.
Wow.
I mean, it
Words
played
cannot
on.
express my disappointment right now.
It played on MTV when I was a kid. I just always
So what?
switched
Batman
channels.
played on CBC when I was a kid. What's your point?
I was just saying
If
how
you
I
don't
switched channels when
watch
it was
it-
on.
They're explaining what mode they didn't watch it in.
Ah. Yeah, if you don't watch it, it doesn't matter where it's being broadcast.
I've seen all the best emotional clips though because it's brilliantly acted. So
Yeah,
Anyway.
that's what I was thinking about Fresh Prince, was the Emmy-winning acting.
have you not seen the scenes I'm thinking of? I don't know. There's some good.
They're literally talking about the scene where Will's dad abandons them.
Yeah, that
No.
pretty much. Yeah.
Because that's like the one time he could act back then, given that he literally was not an actor, but was just
Yeah.
a rapper they asked to do the show because they wanted to get someone in the culture.
Yeah.
Of course, I've seen the part where somebody has parental issues. Like, come on. Anyways, let's move on.
There's
with
an Uncle
Spider-Man.
Phil joke in there somewhere, but I'm not going to make it.
Back on topic, Peter meets up with Betty, and they immediately...
Go looking for Wilma?
Oh, fuck.
I'm just asking.
Why
No.
didn't we do this last night, Ryan?
I've seen the Flintstones. At least some of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
You
the
have, or
Flintstones
you
is a
heard about
classic.
them?
No, I've seen the Flintstones. I've seen
The
quite a bit of the
cartoon?
Flintstones. Yeah, the cartoon
Oh.
and
They
multiple
mean the
movies.
live-action movie.
No,
that came
I've
out when you
seen
were a
some
child.
of. No, well, yes, but I've also seen some of the cartoon. Give me a little bit of credit. Come on.
We're not giving you any freaking credit for
No.
anything.
I've
Not
seen
after
some
the
of the
Halloween
cartoon, too.
episode. You get zero credit because you have zero credibility. Okay? I'm sorry. Just no. No credit for you, boo. Now go
You
live
guys
with your
aren't
auntie and uncle in Bel Air.
You guys aren't even happy when I say I've actually seen something.
The pain. The wound.
Hey, never
Okay,
one I
sorry,
don't
Bill.
get.
Finish her off.
I mean, that part wasn't printed because we had the comic code back then.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Anyway, Betty tells Peter what's going on, and then we cut over to Doc Ock, who breaks the gangster out of the prison, and Spider-Man arrives, and of course the guards assume he's the one that broke the guy out of prison.
Because Spider-Man's
And,
an idiot.
Yeah. So
They didn't have security cameras back then.
Spider-Man just flies away and is like, "Oh shit! I just realized that with this gangster and Doc Ock on the loose, they're probably going after Betty." And we cut over to Betty's brother's house, where a whole bunch of gangsters are in fact pointing guns at him and Betty. And they kidnap them and take them onto a boat that the gangster's going to use to escape the country. And the gangster and Doc Ock show up, and Doc Ock is demanding that he gets the $100,000 he was promised. And the gangster's like, "Oh yeah, it's on the ship. I'll totally give it to you."
You can trust
And
me.
somehow Spider-Man arrives. Oh, he used his tracking device. It actually was remembered.
Got it from the
And so
Porcupine.
everyone ends up on the ship. The gangster reveals that he has no intention of letting Betty and her brother go. He's just going to kill the two of them so that there's no witnesses. And Spider-Man arrives on the ship and immediately lands on a spool of rope and breaks his ankle because that's Stan Lee's current obsession.
So it would seem.
And gets caught by the gangsters and gets brought into the room. Doc Ock's like, great, I'm going to go murder Spider-Man.
Yes,
and
do it.
So Spider-Man starts fighting with all the gangsters and throws one of them at Doc Ock, knocking him out of the room. He starts beating up all the gangsters while the head gangster grabs his gun and starts shooting wildly. And Spider-Man yells at Betty and Bennett to stay undercover so that they don't get shot. But Bennett immediately decides that this is going to result in Betty getting shot, so he runs out and gets shot himself.
Bennett immediately decides to get shot.
Yeah, pretty much. If he had just stayed put, he would have been safe, but he runs out into the line of fire and gets himself killed.
Glad to know you,
in the
Bennett.
process of getting killed. And Betty gets mad at Spider-Man for getting her brother killed.
Justifiably.
And the gangster escapes. So Spider-Man starts chasing him, fights a bunch more gangsters, and fights that gangster.
This Spider-Man guy's a menace.
All right, Jonah. And then Spider-Man starts fighting with Ock, and he just fights with Ock and random gangsters for like 5 pages. And eventually, Doc Ock sees a different boat winging by, so he grabs a briefcase that allegedly contains the money he was owed and hops onto this other boat. And so Spider-Man chases him onto it, and they keep fighting on the other boat until the police show up. And they're so busy fighting that no one's looking at where the boat's going, so it just crashes into a pier, and both Doc Ock and Spider-Man fall off it. And the police arrest all the gangsters on the boat and rescue Betty, while Spider-Man limps off and webs up his ankle so that he can walk without limping and not give away the connection, and dresses back as Peter Parker and goes to see Betty. And Betty, at this point, has had a chance to think things through a bit, and so she admits that she was wrong to blame Spider-Man for Bennett's death because it wasn't actually Spider-Man's fault. But even so, she could never really look at Spider-Man the same way again, so she hopes she never encounters him again. And Peter comforts her, and then sad Peter walks off into the darkness because he was planning to reveal that he was Spider-Man to her, and now he can't.
Oh, dear God. Please tell me you're done.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank
I
you.
actually agree. This isn't my favorite issue so far. I gave it a 3, but it's a low 3. I wasn't really fully into this one. Yeah, I didn't like this one.
There's no J. Jonah, it gets a 1.
The average is about a 4, but I
gave it a 4. I liked it. It wasn't one of the top issues, but I thought it was pretty enjoyable.
How much CBD oil are you ingesting on a daily basis? Good Lord.
But you see, I don't hate Spider-Man inherently.
I don't hate him inherently. I hate him in real life.
I hate this guy.
And whatever happened to Wadley? You said he shot Wadley. What happened to Wadley? Where is he? Is he dead? Or was he wildly shooting? Was he going boldly or boldly going?
You're going to be boldly going if you keep this up.
We're just asking. These are things people want to know when they watch these podcasts. You got to learn to clarify yourself.
Bold of you to assume anyone watches this.
Yeah, really.
Point, yeah. But if they do, Bill, for posterity.
You're a posterity.
Ooh, so you were looking at
a pain in the posterity. Anyway, let's all
It's
move
hard
on.
being the straight guy in this crowd, trust me. It's really freaking hard.
He might be the straight guy, but he's certainly not the straight man in this presentation.
No, I'm really not.
Oh my!
I am the Costello to 2 freaking Abbotts. Oh my god!
Oh shit! Well, let's move on from Spider-Man momentarily. Thanks for coming, Bennett. You're a valuable character to the Spider-Man mythos.
I'm glad you're dead.
Oh, by the way, that was...
You had your shot. You're done.
Okay,
He had
that was a
about
good
6
one.
of them, by the way, Blackie was shooting.
Yeah.
That was
This
actually
is
a good
after
one.
he shot wildly.
So this story that we just read was this was what the build up for the last 2 or 3 issues has been of what Betty's big secret was, is that her brother was indebted to Blackie. That's what the whole thing was.
I
from
mean-
the gambling debt.
Yeah, this ends up being fairly important to the ongoing Spider-Man mythos for at least the next 2 years or so.
No, it doesn't. Nobody cares.
I mean, Betty cares, and it ends up defining her entire relationship with Peter till she meets Ned Leeds.
Well, the thing is, you got to remember, people, that both Bennett and Wildly are dead. Okay? This is what matters. And it's Spider-Man's freaking fault.
Anyway,
Let you in on a secret. Wildly comes back in 86.
Ooh, reincarnation? Nice.
Probably a clone, given Spider-Man. I haven't read that
Yeah.
issue yet.
I think we broke Ryan.
I was certainly trying.
okay, let's move on to Daredevil. We're finally debuting Daredevil issue number 1, and this is called The Origin of Daredevil. What are the
The
original
origin
titles?
of the masochist. Okay.
The origin of Daredevil, complete with his inferiority complex, given that the first, both the cover and the splash page spend most of the time trying to tell you that this will be as good as the time they introduced Spider-Man.
Yeah,
The
right
only
away he's
saving-
compared to Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's what we wanted.
Literally, it's like Daredevil, the man without fear. Remember Spider-Man? We're
man
trying
without a
again with
personality?
Daredevil.
It'd also be as good as the Fantastic Four, as popular, if you should say it should be, or whatever they're saying here.
Well, it can't be any worse.
Well, it can be.
Hold my beer.
But
You haven't read past the 3rd issue of Daredevil yet, because trust me, it can get way worse when they debut classics as Stiltman.
also on the
Leg it.
on the comparison to Spider-Man, it takes him till it takes Daredevil till issue 2 to steal a Spider-Man villain. Just
Yeah.
throwing that out there.
And to continue the inferiority, he steals the Spider-Man villain and fights him in the Baxter building.
Ooh.
Yeah, just wait
nice.
until we get there. It's a gem.
That's not even a joke.
That's okay. He has sex with her Hulk later on, too, so. Just saying.
He has sex with a lot of people later on. He's a bit of a
You're a bit of a manhole.
So, anyways, this is
Oh,
written
look at
by
the manhole cover.
this is written by only a manho could wear such a yellow costume. No,
What can I say? It looks like it was designed by a blind man.
Well, you know he's a good guy because it's not green.
You didn't even wait at all to use that.
I restrained it long enough to make fun of them just like desperately tying it to other comics to try to make it seem good.
The first
Yeah.
time the costume is brought up here, you go right into that. Anyways, this comic is fucking written by Stan Lee. What a shock. Art is by Bill Everett, his introduction to this reading order. And Bill Everett's a nice little treat, actually, as we might
First time
mention
we've
as we go
seen him
along.
since he was drawing Submariner back in the 40s.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Actually, wait,
the-
he drew him in the 50s too. But he'll turn up and draw Submariner, and that's it.
This one is inked by Steve Ditko, Bill Everett, and Sol Brodsky, all three apparently. Cover is by Jack Kirby and Bill Everett together. And this is lettered by Sam Raisin. February 1964 release, and a 23-page story. And I'm going to take this one because
Nobody else would.
I used to hate Daredevil, and over the past few years, he has become a favorite of mine. So let's journey into his very first issue.
Says
Oh,
the
wait,
Rob
what's my
Zombie
name?
fan.
I like Daredevil, but the early run has very little to do with it. It starts off strong and just plummets and stays at the bottom until Frank Miller comes along some point further than I have read.
So, moving on from the Fantastic Four comment I was trying to mention is it says it's a worthy companion mega scientist. Such a fabulous title as Fantastic Four. And then we're told about all the characters. We're told about all the main cast that will meet in this issue between Matt Murdock, Foggy Nelson, and Karen Page. So we open on a splash page that's just a nice little picture of Daredevil with the origin of Daredevil as the title. And right away,
a nice little picture of the first issue of Spider-Man.
Yes.
In case you forgot what you're supposed to be comparing it to.
Yes, and right away another comparison to Spider-Man, as they're like, oh, remember this? Oh, you probably wouldn't part with it if you had found out you had now, so we congratulate you on having bought another first edition of a prize new comic, blah, blah, blah. So they're like, make sure you keep this comic. But anyways, we open up at this, at Fogwell's Gym, which is, of course, actually a gangster meetup spot, where we just see a group of gangsters playing some poker around the table, before Daredevil pretty quickly ends up showing up. This is... I don't know what any of these guys' names are right now, but that's okay.
They work for the Fixer. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, they work... there it is, thank you. They work for the guy named the Fixer, who is the head of this little organization. And Daredevil has come to shut the Fixer's business down a bit, and he ends up taking on all these men here. We quickly are adjusted here to some of Daredevil's more cruiserweight style of superhero exploits, where we see his acrobatics on display a little bit and his agility, and we also see his
Ox
Billy
writes
Club.
a letter to the newspaper complaining about all the flippy floppy shit.
We see his Billy Club debuted here right away too, that he throws around at a he throws at a gun. Wow, that's a gun. And knocks it into the gangster's hand. We see his gymnastics in full display when he starts swinging from ropes that are just attached to the ceiling for no good reason. Oh no, because it's an acrobatic set up in this gym. It makes a little bit of sense.
No, it doesn't.
Not fully, but anyways, Daredevil uses his acrobatics to take these guys on, and then finally, after 4.5 pages, we actually go 4.5 pages. We go into the origin of Daredevil, so we actually get to be introduced to the guy. A brand new name in the world of superheroes, destined to reach the fair heights of glory. Daredevil has a special type of power, blah, blah, blah. And now we go back to the origin of the man called Daredevil. Anyways, we are introduced... we are introduced to Matt Murdock as a young boy, as he talks to his dad, Balin Murdock. And he's 8 at this point.
Someday
he's like,
I want to be like Batman and use my sonar powers for good.
Someday I want to be like Batman and be inspired by my dead parent. Anyway.
Ooh, yeah, that too.
Anyways, we see Balin Murdock is a really good father, and just like he just puts into his son's head to just keep studying and studying.
Pounds his son senseless.
I mean, it's the 60s. That could have fallen into the definition of a good parent back then.
Yeah.
I started saying with pounding. I was gonna say pound to him about studying and getting through school with good grades and stuff. But then I realized I was saying pounding, and I was like, I better switch that up. And then you still called it out. So.
Yeah, well.
Anyways,
you fell down on the job, kind of like a Rob Zombie, making a movie.
We see Matt Murdock misses out on all these social activities, doesn't play football because he is fully committed.
Because he's freaking blind. Why?
He's not blind yet, Dan.
Let me get through
this.
Oh,
for God's sakes. Please, just get to the part where he goes blind and we'll move on.
He is a good student and a good son. He is trying to stick to what his father has taught him. And
America, white boy.
he starts getting bullied and is starting to have enough. So he starts training to grow his muscle mass and so he can defend himself. We see him training early on.
Join the WWF.
No, he's not big
That's
enough.
Spider-Man.
Wait a minute. Was he secretly the Ultimate Warrior?
No, he would be in the NWA
Okay.
if anything. But anyway.
We now know who's dethroning Tyrus.
Uh-huh.
Anyways, we see Matt studying one night, and his father says how he's so proud of him. And then we see Battling Murdoch go to his agent, and because he wants a fight, but he's having a hard time getting booked because he's getting older. He's getting up there in age, so he's having a hard time getting bookings. So he goes, meets a guy, and the guy says, well, the only guy that's willing to back you for a fight is the guy named the Fixer. Do you wanna take him up on it? And Battling Murdoch says he always swore to not get himself mixed up with the Fixer because he's heard that, well, he fixes fights. So he always wants to stay away, but he's desperate to get his
Why
name
is it
back
called
out
the
there.
Fixer, though?
Because you need to be on the nose. It's the 60s.
Okay.
So Battling Murdoch's introduced to the Fixer, and, well, he gets Battling Murdoch to fix some fights for him. So he starts getting bookings again, and Battling Murdoch actually starts to get a bit of a name and reputation again from getting these bookings through the Fixer. We then finally go over to Matt Murdoch, who is finally blinded as he saves this old blind man, as we see a truck that says Cozy Cleaners on it. Oh no, that's just one that's on the street. The actual one that blinds him is Ajax Atomic Labs Radioactive Materials.
Nice to know you were paying
well.
attention when you read this the first time.
There's a fan on the street, okay? But then it switches to a different fan. It has a different name. So Ajax Atomic Labs Radioactive Materials, and it has a danger sign on it, and the old blind man almost gets ran over before heroic Matt Murdoch tackles him out of the way, probably hurting the old man doing that just as much too.
It hurt him less than a truck would.
Yes, for sure. It's like comparing Lance Storm to Tyrus.
Riveted by this story.
It's much better when you read it, but you don't. You're not in this process of reading like we are. So
There's a reason for that.
But anyways, a crowd gathers around as Matt Murdoch is in bad shape, and he mentions that there is talk from the standbys that it looks like it's something radioactive. It said radioactive materials on the truck, so you know. But we see him at the municipal hospital later, and a nurse says how brave his Matt is to Battling Murdoch, and he's like, if only I'd been there. I wish this happened to me. There's talk about how he might never regain his sight. And currently now, Matt Murdoch is blind. There is kind of hints that maybe there could be surgeries in the futures that could bring his sight back, which is like, why, but whatever.
So that they could do the inevitable, will Matt get his sight back storylines in the future.
Exactly.
Does anybody care?
We
Can
see
move
Matt
on
go
to another story.
We see
No,
Matt go
consistently the worst stories.
We see Matt go on the training, continue training as a blind guy, and then we see that he meets Foggy Nelson when he goes off when he graduates high school and goes off to college. We then learn how his other senses that aren't sight have increased tenfold ever since the accident, and we get a rundown of that, which is kind of important. And then I guess we get more examples as he can tell where people are location-wise due to his senses.
Yeah, at this point, they're playing around with him actually having full-blown radar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does not stick. I think it's gone literally by the next issue. But at this point, they're toying with him literally echolocating.
Sonar. Yeah.
We see Battling Murdoch isn't doing too bad, as the Fixer has a big wad of money in his hand. They seem to be doing all right.
Well, the Fixer has been fixing every fight for him.
Yes. So
He doesn't know it,
reps,
but the Fixer's been arranging for people to take a dive.
His that's why his rep's been built so up, and we see that he is set up for a huge fight coming up to face the number 2 contender.
Let me guess. He has to lose.
He's facing number 2 contender for the title, and he is asked to throw the fight. Whoa, where'd you see that coming, Dan?
An original
It's almost
idea.
like he's watched the Daredevil Netflix show.
Yeah.
Or the Ben Affleck movie.
I haven't.
Yeah.
I think I might have actually watched the Ben Affleck movie. I think.
Of course,
Yes,
you watched
you
the one that wasn't good and didn't watch the one that was.
And then we see Foggy run over and tell Matt about this fight, which Matt already happened to know because of his senses said something or whatever. Who cares? But then we get to the fight. Battle Murdoch is facing the number 2 contender. He's supposed to throw, but he's like, I'm gonna make my boy proud because he sees Matt in the audience, and he doesn't throw. And in fact, he wins the fight. So now he's the number 1 contender for the title. And then the Fixer's like, nobody doing that to me, and has
Ain't no fool doing that to me.
and has Battle and Murdoch killed, and Matt is very sad because.
So his uncle died, or his father died due to a boxing match.
He died
Matt, was
after
that?
he gets shot on the street, well, in an alley or whatever. And we see Matt and Foggy graduate college. They start up this law firm, Nelson and Murdoch. What a shock! We all know Daredevil a little bit, hopefully, if we're part of this podcast. Well, maybe not Dan. But then we are introduced to Karen Page as she is their assistant at Nelson and Murdoch.
The love interest. Bum, bum, bum.
Pre-heroin Karen Page. But
And you can see that Bill Everett hasn't drawn a lot of comics since the 1950s based on that hairdo he gave her.
oh, that's a beautiful, beautiful hairdo. But anyways, we see we see Matt making his costume to become Daredevil as he wants to.
How many hundreds of pages is this comic?
He wants to avenge his dead father. There's a lot that happens in this
information
first
dense.
issue. It's very.
No,
it's like
dense,
reading.
all right.
It's like reading an X-Men or an Incredible Hulk issue.
Except good.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm
This
making
is
fun
actually
of it a
good.
lot, but I actually love this comic.
This is Daredevil. Actually, for the first little stretch, is actually a good comic, and then it just takes a violent turn. So, which I haven't gotten to yet, thankfully. But the Daredevil costume's made. He talks about like how he has material in it, I think, to help protect him a little bit, but who cares? We see him doing his
He's
acrobatics.
talking about... No, I want to call attention to this, because this is some grade A bullshit. He's talking about how his touch is so sensitive, he can even feel the different colors of the fabric, so he is entirely aware of the color scheme he chose.
The colors of the rainbow.
No wonder Matt Murdock is a man whore. His sense of touch helps him out. But anyway,
Taste the rainbow,
he
Matt.
knows what he's doing. We see that Matt turns his cane into his billy club weapon that he can extend back into his cane. And we see him start doing acrobatics with his cane, and it turns the billy club to use as a weapon, all this stuff. So, because he couldn't just buy like another cane to make into one, or even just buy a kind of club, he just had to go ruin his one cane or whatever.
Well, I mean, he doesn't actually need the cane for anything but looks, so that's kind
I
of
mean,
fine.
yeah, he doesn't, but you know.
Well, he makes the cane because he's able.
Anyways,
Fuck off.
so we go
That's
back
a Bible
to
joke, Ryan.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's a book that Christians read.
Yeah,
You
I'm
probably
not,
haven't read it.
That's incorrect.
Rob Zombie
actually.
does a foreword, I think, in it, so you might want to read it.
That's incorrect.
I
It's got
thought the
people,
zombie was
it's got
Jesus.
dead people coming back to life. So
I was in a church group for 5 years, so. But anyways,
did you teach them anything?
It was Friday nights weren't church group. Friday nights weren't any fun until I came back from the church group to watch Friday Night SmackDown. That was how the redemption. But anyways, back to the present. Matt Murdock is fighting. Matt Murdock has found the Fixer and calls him out on murder and Battle and Murdoch, and he's like, what's that to you? Blah blah blah. And his and he's got a guy with him that Daredevil takes care of, but then fuck. Anyways, things aren't looking so good for the Fixer after a minute or two here, and the Fixer decides to run with this guy. Well, actually, Daredevil gets pushed out a window before that happens, but he grabs the flagpole that's there. We go over to Foggy Nelson, who wonders where Matt is because he hasn't been answering. And Karen, he talks to Karen and says how it's her day. Is this important at all? I'm going to assume not and move on.
It's setting up the status quo for Matt's interactions with Foggy and Karen for the next 50 issues or so.
Okay, so it's just setting up how okay. Yeah, so
Foggy's just wondering where Matt is, and Karen's like, oh, I thought he was with you. And then they're both worried because he's blind and alone in the city.
Poor guy. But anyways, we go back. Daredevil's surrounded by the Fixer's men. He's not too worried about it, though, as he takes care of not actually any of them before he gets stripped up from a rug and breaks his wrist, essentially, or really hurts it at least.
Yeah, joint injuries were clearly Stan's obsession of the month.
We've had 3 different months so far, by the way, I'd like to throw out there. He turns back to Matt Murdock. He decides he'll come back afterwards, which he decides he's going to follow the Fixer, and the Fixer has this one guy with him, but he follows him as Matt Murdock, a blonde guy, pretty unsuspected, into the subway, and so then turns back to Daredevil, and a chase is on in the subway. He trips up the Fixer's guy here, who has a name, I believe, but I'm not going to try to find it, and takes care of him pretty easily. Then he jumps on a trash can and rolls on the trash can, walks on the trash can as it rolls to catch up to the Fixer and takes him down. And then he lets the police take care of the situation, and the Fixer gets revealed as the murderer of Battle and Murdoch when Daredevil goes back and tackles the man of the Fixer and starts accusing and putting it on him. So the guy admits that it was all he murdered him for the Fixer.
The Fixer randomly died of a heart attack due to the strain of running from Daredevil.
Oh yeah, that happens. That did happen. And then we end the issue. Matt Murdock is back in the office, and they were like, "Oh, we were worried about you. Where have you been?" And he's like, "Oh, I can't get around too fast. I'm blind." And then we see him standing in his office with a silhouette of Daredevil, a shadow of Daredevil on the wall. So yes, that is the end of Daredevil issue number 1. Finally,
thank God. Oh,
we still have 2 more full issues to go. That was really good, believe it or not.
I love this.
Me too.
The art really helped it.
Bill Everett, really good artist ahead of his time. I will also say that this is in that tier with the. I think Daredevil is right in that tier with right in the tier or right below it of where Doctor Strange's origin lies. I think this is a classic origin that is really good when it's done, and it doesn't really actually get done all that often, but it's just a really solid origin. So I'm glad that it portrayed itself out that way.
I don't think it's ever been retconned either.
No, I think it relatively sticks to what it is. I think maybe they might. I think at different points they maybe play around with like the old guy with stick or something that he saved, or maybe something like that, but. But
the key features don't change. He always saved an old guy. He always was instructed to focus on his studies instead of other stuff by his father.
His father always gets killed. We get more expansion on the father's lead up to his death and everything in later
I think
issues.
In 2000 they did a whole miniseries about him.
But yeah, I mean, Battle of Murdoch is. It's a tragic parental death. She's a single father trying to give his kid a good life, and he gets killed, being a good guy who had been stuck around with bad people. So it's a really solid origin. But yeah, I gave this 4 stars.
I went full 5.
I thought you would.
I absolutely love the noir style of it.
Dan gave
Like,
this a solid
that's the
one.
thing that really takes away from future Daredevils, because it starts with Bill Everett drawing it, and they give it this like moody, atmospheric art, and then it gets shunted over to just random artists in the bullpen, and it's just another superhero book and immediately loses a lot of its charm.
As soon as the next issue, we lose Bill Everett. Bill
Yeah,
Everett's
but it
lost
keeps
next
the
issue.
noir feeling for a little bit.
He doesn't have. They mentioned Bill Everett didn't have time to draw a monthly comic or whatever, so they had to get. They get this guy who's actually pretty good, but he just it's just not the same.
Yeah, I think
would've
it's
been
once
great.
it lands in Coletta's lap that it really falls apart.
Probably because right now the art's still pretty good where I am, but we'll see. But yeah, so 4 stars, 5 stars, and Dan probably gave it a 1 or 2. So
Given
let's.
that smirk he was giving when I was talking about how it was good, probably a 1.
I said 1 earlier. Oh wow, look at him! Big numbers coming out.
I'm telling you.
We have time to move on to the second Spider-Man story, and Dan's pain continues. As
God.
This is what you get for smirking for Daredevil.
Amazing Spider-Man issue number. Amazing Spider-Man
Okay.
issue number 12, Unmasked by Dr. Octopus.
Oh, God.
This is a February 1964 release. Of course, we have Steve Ditko and Stan Lee dominating the credits. And Artie Simic does the letters on this one. And this is a 22-page story. And Bill, off we go.
All right. So this opens with a Daily Bugle article about how Dr. Octopus escaped from Spider-Man, and how the whole thing is about how Spider-Man let Dr. Octopus go, and wondering how long this masked nuisance is going to be permitted to make a mockery of justice, because Jonah wrote it.
Yep. And he's right. He's absolutely right.
And so Peter, as Spider-Man, decides to go and antagonize Jonah a bit because he's pissed about the newspaper. And he arrives outside Jonah's office just in time to see the replacement secretary that had been brought in for Betty quitting, because Jonah doesn't need a secretary, he needs a psychiatrist. And Jonah's all
from
like,
the guy who thinks he's a spider.
No, that was from the secretary.
Uh-huh.
And Jonah is confused why employees get upset when you shout at them. Just then, Betty arrives, and she's like, "Hey, do you still need a secretary back?" And he's like, "Yeah, get back to work." And so Peter starts thinking with his hormones and slinks off to the ceiling, where he puts on his civilian garb and comes in to flirt with Betty. But Jonah immediately throws him out of the office because he doesn't want him hanging around unless he has pictures of Spider-Man.
Hi, Betty. You look pretty.
And we get the news that Doc Ock has been pulling a variety of crimes all over the country, trying to draw Spider-Man out of hiding.
Oh. Good.
And finally
good.
he figures out that maybe he has to go back to New York to find Spider-Man. And we cut back to New York, where we learned that the reason Spider-Man hasn't confronted Doc Ock is because Peter can't afford to go to anywhere else anymore. He spent all his money going to Philadelphia last month.
Yeah, how's his
And
ankle,
he
by
might
the
also
way?
be getting sick.
I mean, is his ankle okay? People
It's been a
wanna know.
month. It's fine.
Oh, okay.
But now he's getting an encounter with his worst enemy, the flu.
Oh,
And
okay.
so Peter heads off to school, and just antagonizes Flash by trying to play at being the biggest coward around so that he won't suspect he's Spider-Man. And Betty gets a mysterious phone call at work, which is immediately, the mystery is blown by revealing that it was Doc Ock. And so she's kind of freaked out about that, and then Peter shows up to pick her up after work. But just then, Doc
He
Ock
has
busts
so many
in.
hands. Sorry.
Just then, Doc Ock busts in through the window and kidnaps Betty,
Want to see my tentacles, Betty?
Actually, he grabs Betty, Jonah, and Peter,
Ooh,
and
kinky.
throws Jonah and Peter away and takes Betty.
Smart man.
He delivers a ransom to Jonah, and Jonah sends Peter to go get pictures of him picking up the ransom.
Unfortunately, what they don't realize is Betty doesn't want to come back.
And so Peter sneaks off and turns into Spider-Man and confronts Jonah to demand the location of Doc Ock because he doesn't want to give away that he already knows. And so he starts trying to head for Coney Island, which is where the drop is going to happen, but realizes that he's losing his powers. Because that's the thing that happens when he gets sick, apparently. And Jonah starts thinking about things and realizes that Peter will probably fuck up getting the pictures, so he heads off to Coney Island himself to take the pictures. So we head over to Coney Island, where Doc Ock is wondering what's taking that photographer to show up with the ransom. And Spider-Man staggering over, feeling like absolute shit because he's getting sick fast. And he's basically lost all his powers.
Me last night.
Betty tries to escape, and Spider-Man attacks Doc Ock. And it's not doing much because he's weak as a kitten. And so Doc Ock immediately knocks him out. And Betty's there, Jonah's arrived, and a bunch of cops have shown up. And Doc Ock's like, haha, I'm going to reveal who Spider-Man is. And so he pulls off the mask, revealing Peter. And everyone's like, oh, Peter dressed up like Spider-Man to try to rescue Betty. What a hero.
Isn't that adorable?
It's so sweet.
And so Doc Ock gets pissed that Spider-Man didn't actually show up. And so he storms off. And the cops start yelling at Jonah for interfering with their investigation to try to get a story himself.
Well, somebody's got to get this resolved. I don't understand what the problem is with Jonah. At least he's doing something. It's nice to be a little proactive in this. He's so misunderstood.
And so they take Peter home, and
Take me home,
he gets
Peter.
checked out by the doctor. And they reveal that it's just, who figures out that it's just a 24-hour virus and he should be fine in the morning.
Probably had a bug
And
bite.
so he wakes up the next day and realizes that he's fine and has his power back.
Wow.
And so he starts trying to dressing up like Spider-Man. And then he realizes that his aunt saw him in the costume. So he wears it under his clothes, but then bundles some other random clothes up in a bundle. And heads down, gets confronted by Aunt May, who's pissed at him for dressing up like Spider-Man. And so he swears he'll never do it again, said he's taking the costume out to burn it.
So he's also lying to his aunt. What a little POS. The one woman in the world who cares for him, nurtures him, and he just flat out lies to her. Wow. And this is supposed to be our superhero?
Yes.
Pretty pathetic, guys. Come on. Really? This guy's scum.
Just keep moving on.
It's getting hard to no-sell him.
We still have X-Men.
No, Dan has X-Men.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Why do you think I gave it to Dan? It'll be quicker that way.
It'll also give him time to calm down after the Spider-Man hate.
Oh.
Anyway, Peter heads to school, where all of a sudden he's extremely popular because everyone heard about what he did.
So he and Flash go scissor each other? I don't know. What?
Scissor me, Daddy Flash.
In the locker room with Flash. Oh.
And so,
Taking fucking liberties.
You got to shower after your workout.
and so everyone's impressed with Peter, except for Flash, who's convinced that he only did it to try to look like a hero and had no intention of actually running into Doc Ock. But no one believes him, especially not Liz, who immediately dumps him and starts hitting on Peter. And we cut over to
Pickle.
And we cut over to Doc Ock, who's tearing up the Bugle because he's pissed that he got made a fool of by a teenager. And so he sets out with a new plan to reveal Spider-Man by going to the zoo.
Wow.
And so he goes to the zoo and he lets all the animals out. And the police start trying to catch the animals. And Peter hears this and decides he's going to go off and catch the animals as Spider-Man. But he's having trouble getting rid of Liz because she keeps wanting to spend all her time with him all of a sudden. So he ducks around the corner, and before she can get around the corner, he jumps up onto the roof of the building. And she comes around the corner, and of course Peter's not there anymore, and so she starts yelling at Flash for making her lose him. Well, Peter puts on his Spider-Man costume and heads off to corral the animals from the zoo, which he does quick enough that it's pretty much just a way to fill 3 pages. And so Doc Ock starts complaining that plan didn't really work, so he knocks a sign down onto a whole crowd of people, but Spider-Man whips it up and saves it. And then Jonah sees him and figures Spider-Man's come out of hiding. And Spider-Man confronts Doc Ock, and Doc Ock tries to attack him, but Spider-Man was standing on top of a water tower, and Doc Ock's arms go through it and shatter it, causing a whole wave of water to hit Jonah where he was staring out his window. And so he starts yelling about how it's the real Spider-Man because Parker would never have the nerve to do that. And so Doc Ock starts chasing Spider-Man up to the top of a giant smokestack, and Spider-Man leaps off and webs him to the side of it, but Ock escapes quickly. They fight on the rooftops for a while, and eventually they end up inside the art museum, where they ended up causing a fire. So the whole building catches on fire, and they're fighting and smashing priceless antiquities by throwing them at each other.
See, I told you Spider-Man was a freaking menace.
That is pretty classic Spider-Man.
Ock gets trapped under the big heavy statue, and so Spider-Man goes to try to get him out from under it because he doesn't want to kill him, but the floor collapses under him, and Spider-Man gets cut off by the fire before he can find him. And he uses his webbing to escape the burning building, and changes back into Peter Parker. And just then we see the fire department hauling out the unconscious Octavius from the building. They have him handcuffed, and they're taking him back to jail. And then Liz shows up and tells Peter how great he is and how she wants him to go to a party with her, but Peter's like, I'm sorry, I have a date with Betty, and walks off. And he's like, but I'm sure Flash will be happy to go with it instead of each other, or go to it instead of me. And Flash gets pissed off, and Liz is like, no, we kind of deserve that after us constantly treating him like shit. And then Peter thinks about how he got pictures of his fight with Doc Ock, so he'll make some money selling them to Jonah, and things are finally looking up for him. And that's the end of the issue.
Nice.
I have no words.
This was the better of the 2 issues, in my opinion, that we covered
It was.
Because it was more focused on Doc Ock and stuff.
You guys
and
are
blah, blah, blah.
such marks for Doc Ock. It's
yes,
just
I am.
Embarrassing. Embarrassing.
Well, you keep going. I will admit to it. And 4 stars for me from this one.
5 for me.
Jesus,
oh my God! Seriously, guys.
I'm on average this time.
Yeah, I'm above average here. I admit it.
I mean, I was below average last time, but I think deservedly so. But like, I don't know. Bill's always kinder on the ratings than I am.
I guess I'll go for a
comfy.
2, just so I'm below average on something.
Unless it's something stupid, then I'm kinder.
Well, it's kind of changed. I've noticed with the last ones you've read, you've been fairly consistently higher than me.
Yeah, last week was fun.
I say you're both really freaking high, thinking you like this.
I wish, but anyway.
This is some good shit, pal.
We haven't gotten to the good shit yet. The X-Men comic is coming up now.
Because this is a professional.
Now we're going to get to the good stuff.
Because this is a professional comics podcast, I took that synopsis.
It's a what?
I took that time during the synopsis to refresh myself on the comics of the month, so I could be ready for our best and worst. But anyways, let's move on to X-Men. Let Dan have his time to shine.
The main event.
Issue number 5. Story is titled
This is like a Hogan main event where it may be the biggest thing on the card, but it's certainly not the best.
Ooh.
Trapped.
Holy
One
crap.
X-Men. Stan Lee, of course, writing. Art by Jack Kirby. Paul Reinman gets ink duties on X-Men, which he helps on the cover as well with Jack Kirby. Letters by Sam Rosen, March 1964 release. A 24-page story is great. 2 extra pages. And off we go, Dan. I hope this synopsis is relatively painless.
Yeah, me too. Let's start by saying the cover's crap. Oh my god, it's horrible.
Yeah, it's
just
bad cover.
This
cover.
This issue takes a big dive in quality after the last 2.
Yeah, but we do start with at least one novel thing. A bad guy who isn't green. Okay, so trapped.
But he's got 2
Silver
henchmen who are green and one who's miscolored, not green, but is typically green in the comic.
Okay, whatever. We picked on Porcupine. He's not green.
I just realized the Scarlet Witch is green on that cover.
Uh-huh. She is.
They miscolor Scarlet Witch green a bunch on covers before they start giving her a proper coloring.
Gwyneth?
Yeah, it's a little weird. Okay, synopsis
I think
time.
they just assumed because she's playing the role of villain here, she must be in green.
Must be green, yeah. Yeah, okay, brace yourselves, guys. This is going to be a tense story. The X-Men's last battle against Magneto and his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants injured the Professor, seemingly destroying his telepathic abilities. They return Xavier to the mansion so that he can get some rest and hopefully regain his powers. The X-Men ponder what they will do without Professor X's help when they hear Marvel Girl's parents arrive for a visit. The X-Men quickly change into their civilian clothes so they can greet their visitors. They excuse Professor X's absence and give Jean Grey's parents a tour of the mansion. The party heads to the Danger Room, where Hank McCoy explains that it is a gymnasium and that the lack of all furnishings is because they are receiving new equipment. I'm convinced. While the group goes into the lunchroom, Scott Summers is accidentally trapped in the Danger Room, and a program designed for the Beast starts automatically. He escapes the obstacles that the Danger Room presents by destroying them. Outside the Danger Room, Jean's parents are unaware of anything out of the ordinary, and they leave. Knowing that their daughter is fine with all these weird men, alone, in the school, by herself. I'm sure it's fine.
Well, the creepiest one is currently comatose, so...
Yeah, well, thank God. But nobody noticed one of Magneto's henchmen, Mastermind, searching for the X-Men's headquarters. After a few minutes, he calls Magneto to pick him up. Ah, that's a pun, right? The X-Men are not nearby. Pun. Are you sure? Please tell me it's a pun.
That
Please,
was so
God,
painful.
Tell me. Please tell me it's a pun. On Asteroid M, Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch ask him why it's so important to find the X-Men. So Magneto, is it Magneto or Magneto?
Magneto.
Okay, Magneto explains that as long as the X-Men are all around, he will intervene in his plans for the mutants to rule the world. He then explains that he's devised a new plan in order to coax the X-Men out of their headquarters. Clever man. Back at the mansion, Scott ponders a plan to stop the Brotherhood when Bobby asks if he'd like to watch a track meet. Scott yells at him for not caring about the Professor. While Jean covers Professor Xavier with a blanket, Hank and Warren join Bobby by the television, along with Jean and the Professor. There's a contestant that wins the track meet using incredible jumps, so the crowd turns on him because they believe he's a cheater. The X-Men realize that the contestant is a mutant, so they head to help him out. Once they rescue the mutant from the angry crowd, the X-Men escape to the subway. As they arrive at the next station, the Beast realizes something familiar about the mutant. Beast pulls off a mask, reveals that it's actually the Toad. Another one of Magneto's... What? I know it's a little tongue-in-cheek being the Toad, but anyway, I had to. Another one of Magneto's henchmen. The whole Brotherhood.
You're only encouraging him, Ryan.
You really are, Ryan.
I hate this guy.
Hey, you're the guys that thought I'd be fun to have on this podcast. Don't look at me. Anyway, the whole Brotherhood arrives to attack the X-Men, and Magneto captures the Angel. The Brotherhood flee with Angel, but they are forced to leave Toad, who is captured by the X-Men. Back on Asteroid M, Magneto interrogates Angel as to the location of the other X-Men, but Angel refuses to tell him. Magneto then attempts to brainwash Angel. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying, okay? The X-Men try to decide what to do with Toad when he suddenly falls into a trance. His only thoughts are that he has to return to Magneto, so he pulls out a communicator and summons a capsule from the sky.
He had it in his prison wallet.
Apparently he did. So he yanks his communicator out of his ass and summons a magic little capsule, a glass elevator from the sky. Okay.
Oh no, it's a magnet-shaped spaceship.
After this polarizing moment,
Oh, for
the
fuck's
X-Men
sake.
follow the Toad in order to find Angel. They appear on Asteroid M, which is Asteroid Magneto, I would assume, to the Brotherhood's surprise. Oh my God! Magneto attempts to kill the X-Men with the push of a button, but the console is sabotaged by the Scarlet Witch because she cannot tolerate murder. Magneto and the two siblings argue over their loyalties, giving the X-Men time to free Angel and attack. The fighting causes some extensive damage to Asteroid Magneto, which causes it to fall apart. Okay. Cyclops is trapped in a section of the asteroid that breaks off right away. Iceman has to create an ice tunnel so that Angel can rescue Cyclops. Before the asteroid is fully destroyed, the X-Men then use the magic glass elevator to return to Earth. Upon returning to the mansion, they try to tell Professor Xavier what has occurred. Xavier informs them that he was able to follow everything because he did not lose his telepathy. Since the X-Men performed the solo mission perfectly, they've passed their final exams and their training is over. The end?
Oh, Professor X was Josh Ness.
Okay, notes. And I bring this up only because it's relevant. On both the cover of this issue and X-Men number 4, Scarlet Witch's costume is colored green, and Quicksilver is colored blue. They are their correct respective red and green colors within the issues. Okay, just so you know.
There, yeah.
I like how they got that missed that Toad and Mastermind are also miscolored on the cover.
Everybody gets miscolored. Yay!
Okay, and here's the best note.
Okay.
Cyclops almost floats away into space in this issue. Okay, we know that. Luckily, everyone is able to hold their breath in space while talking, and Iceman builds an ice bridge around them to Asteroid M. They held their breath in absolute zero.
Simply hold your breath in the vacuum of space.
In a vacuum.
Yes. As you do.
Well, now I know what to do if I ever accidentally, fall through a window at the International Space Station.
Yeah, when you fall out your window on a SpaceX mission.
I get one of you to piddle so I can climb that little ice bridge back.
Your penis rocket.
Yeah, that's right.
This sucked. This was 2 stars for me. I hated this. I didn't quite hate it. I disliked this.
Yeah, this one was not good.
It's a 3.25 average on the site we use, but it doesn't deserve that. This is not that good.
No,
I
it's
gave
not.
it a 3, but it was a low 3. We're talking like 2.6, 2.7-ish.
One of the questions I have is, what is the relevance of Jean's parents? Because they make a ton of appearances in the comics. Like they according to the notes, they make over 30 appearances in the comics. What's the point?
The relevance at this point is
device for oh shit, we need to hide that we're mutants.
Yeah.
Oh.
At this point, they become more relevant when the Phoenix stuff happens, I believe. But
yeah, I think that's where most of their appearances are.
It's just the mutant scare right now.
Okay, no problem.
But yeah, so yeah. Fuck this! I didn't like this comic. Pretty meh way to end the month, really. But whatever. But anyway, let's.
At this point, the Brotherhood already started wearing out their welcome for me.
Let's transition to our monthly segments, and we, as Bill and I discussed last month, we're just quickly gonna do the poll list because it's literally gonna be quick because there's no titles to discuss. So we'll quickly do that, then we'll do our best and worst. So right now we have matched poll list where we're both pulling Fantastic Four, Tales of Suspense, Amazing Spider-Man, Sergeant Fury and the Italian Commandos, X-Men, Strange Tales, and Journey in the Mystery. Dan had jokingly pulled Tales of Suspense months ago. And pretty much the main question this month is, are we adding Daredevil at the moment?
I am.
I am too, so there's that
I'm
answer.
not.
The other thanks, Dan. Is there...
People want to know.
Is there anything besides Tales of Suspense you would pull at this point ever since we asked you this month?
You know what? This is probably going to sound a little odd, but I would probably pull X-Men.
Okay. You have a softer spot for X-Men.
I can feel this incredible potential.
There we go.
Building,
we actually got
building. Yeah. It's not there. It's not even close, but there's just so much that could be done with it.
Yeah, I think that's part of what makes that X-Men run so frustrating, because they periodically will have 2 or 3 issues that are great, and then they go back to being absolutely terrible. And it's like, why can't you just keep doing it?
Yeah, it's like literally there's so it's like Doctor Who. They could go anywhere with this, right? There's the horizon is limitless, but you keep buying issues, and they don't ever go there, really.
I wasn't expecting Dan to actually legitimately answer that question when I asked it, so that's pretty cool.
Asked.
He's got 2 titles pulled now. Holy shit! And the other big question is, are we dropping anything this month?
I'm not. Everything's been pretty static in quality.
I think realistically, I'm pretty annoyed and frustrated at the quality of Fantastic Four this month, so I'm going to say I'm dropping Fantastic Four at the moment, but that will probably quickly change to pulling it again. But for now, this month's Fantastic Four comics were shit, so that's going to drop.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's that. So our best and worst comics of the month, and this is where we let Bill run us through what our lineup was for the month.
All right, we had X-Men 3 with the Blob. Sergeant Fury number 6, where Rommel was not the biggest racist featured. Strange Tales 117A, The Return of the Eel. And B, another Baron Mordo story. Fantastic Four 23 with Doctor Doom and his shitty team. Spider-Man 9 with Electro. Strange Tales 118, A story with the Wizard pretending to be the Torch, and the B story with Doctor Strange fighting the Possessed. Amazing Spider-Man 10 with the Enforcers, where the big man got jealous of Doom's shitty henchmen. X-Men 4, the first appearance of Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Strange Tales 119, A story where with the Rabble Rouser, and B Story where Strange goes beyond the Purple Veil. Fantastic Four 24 with the Infant Terrible. Avengers 4 with Captain America. Tales of Suspense 50. A Story with Mandarin, and C Story with the Space Pilot story.
Sorry, what was that one you just mentioned?
Tales of Suspense number 50, C Story.
Oh, that is the one with the Mandarin. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tales to Astonish 52 with the Black Knight, and the Wasp talking about the guys interrupting the battle of sexes on the planet. Tales of Suspense 51 with the Scarecrow, and the Watcher story about the Primitive. And then we're into today's stories.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off with our worst stories because we'd like to end on a high note. I will say I predicted what Bill's best and worst would be for this month, and I did confirm it by looking in the doc. I already knew the answer, so. But I'm going to let Dan go first because I'm interested
Okay,
to see Dan's
worst
answer
story?
here. Yeah, worst story.
Okay, I'm torn. Okay, I've got two contenders here. The eel story, which I thought was just horrible. I did. I swear to God, I thought it was freaking
It
horrible.
was pretty awful.
But
It's the eel. He's great.
He's good, but the story was just shite. But it is superseded in the end by The Amazing Spider-Man number 10.
Interesting.
Which I thought was crap. It's so bad.
You know what? If you're
Oh
going to
my
give
God,
it...
it's so bad.
You've been pretty kind to avoid just giving Spider-Man your least favorite each month. Even if you're
That's
gonna
true.
if you're gonna give a Spider-Man your worst, I actually don't blame you for giving it to that one. So I'm not gonna judge you too much on that choice.
It was so pedantic and pointless. It was just like, oh God. Right. It's the sort of story that leaves you lying in bed awake at night going, why did I spend the money?
The worst list have almost tied our best list appearances too.
It's
because when you weren't here last month, Ryan gave it to an Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. We should actually probably tell Dan what we did last month. So we gave our worst was for Tales to Astonish 51, A story from Bill. And mine was the B story of Amazing Spider-Man 8, which was that shitty Torch story and Spider-Man story.
Yeah,
and then
that was pretty bad.
That one was pretty awful.
The best, it actually was the Surge, and the best was Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos number 5 from Bill, and I almost gave it the same thing, but I decided not to, as I gave it to Avengers number 3, which was the Namor and Hulk team up.
Okay, yeah. Which actually, that's a good choice.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Amazing Spider-Man number 10.
It's even with that
Crap.
one's worse. That one's worse too when you read it right after Fantastic Four 23. You have two shitty groups of villains, so it's kind of worse that way. But anyways, I'm gonna do my worst next. I'm gonna save Bill's just because I know what it is. So my worst, I actually had a hard time this month because I actually mostly had 3 and 4 star comics. I only had like 3 different 2 stars for the main stories that weren't 5 pages. And I'm actually not going to give it to one of my 2-star ones. And this is going to be a surprising pick, probably. But this one's more because I was disappointed in it. And I expected more from it. But I'm giving my worst to Amazing Spider-Man number 9.
Wow, we tied.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I expected more from Electro's first appearance. And the main topic of the issue wasn't even Electro if you rarely read it. So... I don't know. I liked the issue enough that I gave it 3 stars, but I was really disappointed in it. So that's getting my worst. I could have given it to the Rabble Rouser issue, Torch, or a couple others that were 2 stars, but I figured it's not always about what has the worst rating.
No, it's just which one you enjoyed the least.
Yeah.
And so like a story you expect more from.
Yeah.
Rates it. That's why I never give it to the 5 pages, because I don't expect anything from them, so they don't disappoint me.
And sometimes they're not that bad.
Sometimes they're not that bad, but I mean, even the
they're
awful
not great,
ones
but...
are just something I flip through quickly just to get done with.
Yeah.
So Bill,
Anyway.
what was your least favorite comic of the month?
In completely unsurprising fashion to anyone that listened to the episode of the podcast, it's Fantastic Four 24. Terrible.
Whoa! I didn't see that coming.
Oh, okay. Oh, you know what? That's a legit choice.
It is a legit choice. I think Dan actually kind of forgot about that one, but
I did, actually.
yeah.
Although
was one of the
that doesn't
major
change my
reasons-
answer.
No,
Okay.
fair enough, but
Yeah.
Do you actually
But-
want to change it or not, Dan? Because I
No,
can change
no,
it.
I don't want to change it.
Fair enough. I mean,
yeah, pretty self-explanatory, really.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of my least favorite comics I've ever read in my life.
One could say it was terrible.
Yes.
Only an infant would say that.
Anyways, let's move on to our best
That's so
comics of the month.
childish, Bill.
Let's move on to our best comics in the month, and we'll give it back
I'll
to
go
Dan
cry
again.
until I get served my stewed peas.
There you go.
So Dan, what was
Were
your
you
best
ever a
comic this
Gerber
month?
baby,
Oh,
Bill?
Gerber?
I don't fucking know, man.
You don't remember when you were a baby? What the fuck's wrong with you?
Okay, best title for me.
That is what I was asking you.
Yeah, no, the one I actually enjoyed, and you guys probably saw this coming a mile away, but Tales of Suspense, the Mandarin story,
Yeah.
because I
figured.
really get a kick out of the Mandarin.
Mandarin is pretty great.
So that's issue 50
I think
the
he
A
is
story.
actually, he has so much potential for a bad guy. And he's kind of the Bond villain of the Marvel set, to me, right? And that holds a certain amount of charm. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Tales of Suspense.
Okay.
I think it's the Steve story, but anyway.
The A story is the main.
Ryan.
Yeah, mine. I had a little difficulty with this one, and I think I'm just gonna commit to what my gut tells me on this one because there is 2 or 3 options that are really good. One of the ones like the Daredevil, I could have just given it to today's Daredevil, but I'm not going to, even though it's one of the only chances I probably have to give it to Daredevil. I'm going to give it to the Sergeant Fury issue this month. I really enjoyed it. I know that it was a little ham-fisted and it should have been possibly 2 different issues, arguably, but I really enjoyed the message of that issue in terms of in this story with the racist character helping the team and everything. So issue number 6, Sergeant Fury and the Silent Commanders, for me, was the best comic of the month. I enjoyed it. If not for that, I probably would have given it to Daredevil or, I don't know, maybe one of the Spider-Man, maybe the Avengers issue. Speaking of, Bill, what's your favorite comic?
Mine was Avengers number 4, and this is one of those cases we're talking about where it's definitely relative, because I expected less from Avengers than I did from something like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So when
that's
it
fair.
busted out a really good story, I enjoyed it more than, even though Spider-Man's or Daredevil. I knew the first issue of Daredevil was great going in, but that was the one that I was not expecting to be very good, and it turned out to be a pretty decent story, so Avengers number 4 is my favorite for the month.
See, I didn't enjoy the Avengers issue as much as I was hoping to, but the reason it was still a contender is because when it was focused on Captain America, it was so good. So that's why it was still a contender. But yeah, and just returning Captain America is great. I'm a Captain America fan. We both are, but all 2 of us are, and Dan isn't. So
Hey, make your
What a
bed,
shock.
Ryan.
At this point, if we say we like someone,
That's
just
not my
assume
bed.
Dan doesn't until you get evidence to the contrary.
Hey, I just liked a story that kind of, it was an Iron Man story, which is odd, so, yeah, I'm slipping out of character here.
what are you talking about? Tale of Suspense is one of your 2-fold series.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
far in this run, you've been the kindest to Iron Man.
I've been pretty
Oddly
kind to
enough,
Iron
I
Man.
have been.
Bill's been the hardest on Iron Man out of all of us. So
I think part of that is because I came in really wanting to like it.
probably that probably is a lot of your issue.
That's
with it.
valid. Yeah.
Whereas I didn't expect much from the start of it, so I was surprised by it. But anyways, let's tease what's coming next week. I guess also we can tease next month's bonus episode will actually hopefully be happening, and we will
Yes.
have the guest star of Dan's daughter on, and that should be a lot
Or
of fun.
Sharkmas.
Happy Sharkmas,
Sharkmas.
Merry Sharkmas.
Merry
As we're gonna
Sharkmas
cover,
to you.
we're gonna cover an undetermined amount of shark movies for Christmas that are hopefully semi-related to holidays or at least the season of winter. But we will see. We might have.
I think they're mostly going to be just random shark movies because
We
we're
might
probably
have
never
some
going
random
to
shark
get to do
movies.
this again.
We had two. We have 2 or 3 picked out so far that are semi-related, and we'll probably add like 3 more that are probably just going to be random ones. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll do anywhere from 4 to 6. We haven't completely determined yet, but should be a lot of fun. I'll either be miserable or turn out to be a shark movie fan. So should be
It'll be
interesting.
a Merry Sharkmas, and all have a great white.
And we are
I
going
am
to do.
rooting for you to hate them because it'll be funny for me.
Me too,
Oh,
because
yeah.
it'll be much more entertaining if I hate them. So I hope I do. But
Well, he liked the Rob Zombie movies, so of course he's going to hate the shark movies.
so we also, it's not going to be the only shark movie episode we end up doing, but we won't talk about that now. We have an idea in the works, but we'll talk about that later on. So next week's episode of Route 616, we have starting off with Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos issue number 7 for the court martial of Nick Fury. So that's a really solid job. I'm excited to talk about. Then we move
Title has
on.
intrigued me for that one. I've been fighting reading ahead to see what happens in it.
It's really good. I'm excited for you to read it. Then we have Tales to Astonish issue number 54, which there's no place to hide apparently. Oh my god, it's this issue. Oh
Yeah,
it's
it's absolutely terrible, and I love it.
Come back.
Am I not going to get Tales to Astonish next week?
Come back next week to see Hank Pym overthrow a Democratic government.
Democratically elected government.
And then we have the
How
C
American
story.
of them.
This is.
It's the most open about American
Looks like they
politics
could use
I
a
think
little
they were
freedom.
in the 60s.
Did this story take place on January 6th? Anyway.
Yeah.
The C
No,
story.
this is someone else's democratically elected government. It happened pretty much every day of the year.
Yeah, back in the 60s, the Americans were doing this a lot.
Yeah.
They were making sure everybody got freedom.
Issue 54, C story is a shitty little 5-pager, of course. Then we have
Oh, I actually
Tales.
like this one.
I didn't. Tales of Suspense issue number 52 sees the return of the Crimson Dynamo, which is pretty cool. Then we have the C story of that one, which is another Watcher story. I don't care. We're not going to tease that too hard. And then we have the Tales to Astonish issue number 55, A story, which is
Human Top again.
the return of the Human Top. Let's go.
Because
should
it's
be
been
good.
2 whole issues since he was there. 3 actually,
Hey,
but still.
I was gonna say it's been 3, Bill. Thank you very much. And then we have the B story, which is a secret from a gypsy, apparently. So yeah, I don't remember any of these 5-pagers. So
It's bad and racist because it uses a term that's racist.
yeah, sounds about right. So yeah, it's an interesting week next week. Not necessarily the best week of comics, but at least we have Sergeant Fury to hold us over.
The Iron Man was decent.
The Iron Man is good too.
It's
The
really
one
just
after
Giant
that,
Man that's
so
not
much.
good, and one
Yeah.
of those not good Giant Man wasn't entertaining in spite of it.
Yes, exactly. So come back next week for some entertaining shit and some actually decent shit. So yeah.
And some
If you-
shit.
Yes, we
Yes,
are finishing
there is a
with
little
some
bit of
shit.
We are finishing with some shit. So, if you're watching this on YouTube, the way we recommend watching this, you can see our terrible faces. I don't know, our 3 generations of dumbassery. Leave a like, subscribe, comment, even share if you'd like to. We are also available on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and if you are listening to this on Spotify, click on which is your favorite story that we covered today in the poll that should be attached to the episode. Anyway, guys, we will see you on the next one, and peace out. Sorry for no bonus episode this month.
Have a good one. And
Bye-bye.
blame Ryan for the lack of bonus content.
Exactly.
That's right. It's all Ryan's fault. Now make
See
your
ya.
bed. Make your
See ya.
bed.